What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to Salty Runback, here to be your weekly intake of North American Developmental League of Legends. We are back, and it's been a while since it's just been the two of us in front of the camera talking to you guys on a podcast, but a lot of stuff has happened in the meantime. We talked to Whoopley, we went out to Boise, we started up our NACL Qualifiers broadcast, and the summer split is officially underway with week one of both Challengers and the Qualifiers concluding. We're going to talk all about that and more. My name is Grapes. I'm joined alongside Hawk. Hawk, how are you doing today?
You know, Grapes, we've been better. We're hitting the grind point of the season once again. Feeling a little bit of the lack of off season, but you know what? We get North American League of Legends for like the entire weekend, every single weekend, and it does not get much better than that at the very least.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of knew it was coming going into this CLOL project that we started, but we went straight from Boise into preparing for the summer split. And so that is why it took a while for us to first release the Whoopley episode. There's some audio stuff, which is entirely on me for that, so we apologize for that. We also just did not have time to get a podcast episode out last week, but we promised that we will try our best to get back towards a normal, regular schedule for the duration of summer. But even if that doesn't end up happening, and we hope that it does, you'll still see us every weekend on the NACL Qualifiers broadcast, which will be happening on twitch.tv/NACL2. We're going to have one matchup per day on both Saturday and Sunday starting at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. So make sure you check us out over there. That is your new home for NACL Qualifiers content on its own Twitch channel in a live capacity, which I'm super excited about.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun being back streaming the live games. Grapes, we've not actually done that much casting so far this year. I mean, we did a little bit during CLOL, a little bit during Qualifiers last split on Salty Runback, but it's good to be back. We had a lot of fun last weekend covering the Open Qualifiers. We'll get to all that in a little bit, but definitely make sure you watch NACL2 at 5 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific, or maybe even a little bit earlier if you want to get a little pre-show action. Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah. Today, we're going to be breaking down all of the teams competing in both Tier 2 and Tier 3 for the start of this split in a bit of a different way than your traditional tier list. So make sure to stay tuned for our part 2 to check that out. But before we do that, we got to break down the headlines because a lot of news has happened ever since we had our last podcast episode. Hawk, let's start us off with the CLOL Grand Finals. They just happened a couple of weeks ago in Boise State University, and congratulations to St. Louis University for pulling off potentially one of the bigger upsets that we have seen in the CLOL space in a while. They beat Maryville 3-1. Maryville still has not won a championship since 2019, and even though so many people thought that it was their year. Hawk, there was a lot of great stuff that happened that weekend, but what was your favorite moment from that CLOL Grand Finals?
Man, hard to say, too, because it was a good final. Like you said, I mean, this is a big upset. This is probably the biggest upset in the finals that we've had since Winthrop over Maryville. I mean, honestly, very similar stories. Grapes, I know, at least for me personally, was not really CLOL conscious back in 2021, at least not as much as I obviously am now. So to be here for SLU's winning moment was really cool. And I know it's really easy to say, like, the winning moment was my favorite part of CLOL finals, but there was something about specifically seeing the emotional reactions of all the players and Winnie in particular that, like, I don't know, that's like what it's all about to me, is seeing how much it meant to those players and how hard they worked to achieve something and finally achieving it, was really amazing to see. So I'm going to take the cop-out easy road and say SLU's winning moment was definitely my favorite.
Yeah, I mean, that's hard to beat. As soon as the Nexus blew, Winnie, breaking down into tears, seeing the rest of the team kind of surround him. I mean, for Winnie and Aaron specifically, I mean, everyone has, had their own journeys in the collegiate space, but for everybody, I believe, yeah, for Darkwings and Surdy specifically, like SLU is the only team that they've noticed. They've only been here for about a year. But for Winnie, who's been competing collegiate for I think 6 years now, made it all the way to the finals in 2019 with Western and lost to Niles that last time around, to now being able to win that grand finals. Finally, you could see how much it meant to him, and also for somebody like Aaron, who now in I think year 4 or 5 of collegiate as well. Just seeing the emotion and seeing that journey finally come to that ultimate conclusion, and honestly, they were both really really big parts of that series, and the reason why they ended up beating Maryville. I mean, it was an upset for a reason. Those guys, MU, made it to the NACL finals. They had Yuji, who was their MVP, on that team, and he actually had a pretty good series himself as well. But I think seeing Winnie specifically take a huge step in that grand finals, and just like seeing him have some really awesome plays. That Sejuani game in game number 3 specifically, that was one of my favorite moments. Just seeing him pop off like that.
Yeah,
at
you're right.
Moment.
The Winnie flash shockwave to open up that game 3 was honestly pretty crazy, because I feel like up until that point the series was like really close, and then from that moment SLU kind of dominated from there on out, and it was especially nice because I'm like, man, Winnie's got to get into the series. And then I'm like, this is the worst fucking Sejuani pick I've ever seen. And then he smurfed with it. And I'm like, all right, well, my bad. Like, if you're just going to play it like that.
You're right to think that it was a bad pick. I mean, it was Sejuani and 4 range champions.
No, I was objectively right. Like,
yeah,
it was not a good Sejuani draft at all.
Yeah.
It was Sejuani with 4 range. It also, like, I still think, aside from that fact, it was just not the champion that SLU needed. I stand by my analysis, but Winnie defied it, and like I love when players do that, like, because you can be right as much as you want, but sometimes ball don't lie, and ball didn't lie.
Yeah, well, the Oriana ball definitely did not lie in that game specifically.
Definitely
right?
not.
I mean, one last thing, I guess, like the other cop out answer is just like the experience of being at a LAN. I mean. We had a lot of fun last year, Hawk, at CLOL 2023. But having it on a college campus this time around, and I feel like now that we were a little bit more familiar with just like being in that setting, being in an in-person environment, I feel like I got to personally soak it in a little bit more. We got to hang out with a lot of cool people. We got to all hang out with like the SLU kids after they won the championship the night before we ended up having to leave. Got to meet some of the Valorant casters. Just the general experience in Boise was really great. And it's actually, I want to vouch for it right now. I mean, we probably flamed the city a little bit on our show on multiple occasions, but very, very nice downtown. And so if anybody is in that northwest area, you should definitely go check it out if you haven't already.
Yeah, people have been asking me, like, oh, what was your CLOL experience like and everything? And I have some thoughts about, like, the broadcast itself and, like, the work itself. But I had a really nice time. I really enjoyed getting to hang out with the players and, all the people. I always do. And Boise really was actually nice. Highly recommend Boise, Idaho, apparently. It's a really nice place. So, yeah, I had a nice time, and I think despite all of the circumstances surrounding everything with CLOL, which Grapes I still need to make like a longer post about, because I have a lot of things to, I feel like, unpack inside my own head about what transpired. But regardless of all that, like the point is, like, I still think, despite the decisions of like a few people that maybe are less than ideal frequently, so often in esports I am reminded that there are a lot of just really cool and passionate people in the space, and I'm always appreciative of that.
Yeah, I said getting to see that community again that weekend was really, really cool. And hey, it was just year 1 of Uni Esports / GG Tech running things, right? And so if hopefully in the future they have some more resources and have learned from that experience and things like that, where I'm hopeful personally for what is still to come in the next couple of years. And I think collegiate still is a vibrant community and still has the opportunity to really do some cool stuff. So we'll continue to talk about that as new changes happen, as we get ready for 2025 and everything like that. But let's move on to the summer split, as we are now officially in summer 2024. And before the split began, there were a couple of changes that were announced. You want to learn more about some of the reasoning behind that. If you haven't already checked out our episode where we interviewed Riot Whoopley about some of those changes, definitely make sure that you check those out. But Hawk, overall, out of all of the changes and all of the stuff that you saw in that article, what really stood out to you the most?
there's a few things because we've had a week to kind of be in the season as well, right? So we're a week removed from some of these tables hitting. Some of them we're still sort of waiting on. Um, I think True Fearless is really interesting, because a week into it, we had a couple 3-game series or just one 3-game series in the NACL. It was
I think it was
Supernova
2.
versus CCG. Were there 2?
Let me-
No, because it's 2-2-0s on Sunday, and then
Oh, okay, never mind. No, it
Maryville
was
2
just
out
one. It was
FlyQuest.
just one.
So we had 1, but I've seen a lot of coaches talking about how True Fearless is very different than the original Fearless, particularly in best of threes. Like, it just changes the landscape so much more, which obviously was the point. And I've seen a lot of discourse of like that's not necessarily a bad thing. Like, I know Columers talked about this of like True Fearless is just a different ball game, and I'm kind of excited to see it. I feel like Supernova and CCG were some of the better teams to see go to a 3-game series first, because I think of those 2 teams as being mostly comprised of players with deeper champion pools. Like, maybe not so much Crimson, but everybody else, like Grapes, I don't know about you, I feel like can play different stuff on a lot of those teams. And that was an Astro banger, by the way. That series was super fun. So highly recommend watching it if you have not. So I think like that is definitely gonna be the one thing we're gonna continue to see things be very different, I suppose, in the sense of True Fearless compared to how they were last year.
Yeah, I actually, going into the split, I wasn't entirely sure how that True Fearless system was actually going to impact things, but actually, I feel like it has had a pretty significant impact over the game so far. I mean, even in that first series, like we were seeing like Kha'Zix, we're seeing Ivern, specifically the jungle. I feel like that pool was being pinched a little bit more than I initially realized
Jungle
that it was
meta
going
is
to be.
also way more fun now because people actually get experience later on into the game. You're not like level 13 when your solo laners are 17. It's great.
That is also
But
true.
yeah.
Yeah. But just getting to see different champions every single game. You don't realize like it doesn't like watching the games you kind of don't really notice it 100%. But then when you take a step back and you just kind of I feel like I was just generally appreciative of like wow, like people are playing different things. It doesn't feel as boring, and I feel like that's like a really valuable from an entertainment perspective. And so I'm very happy about that, and I hope that it ends up being okay for some of the players, but also entertaining for the fans, which I think is the biggest thing for that. In terms of other changes that ended up happening, of course we have our new organizations in the league as well. I thought that seeing Fearx Starforge in there was pretty cool. Dragonsteel, of course, impressing some people with their first win. I hope that the watch parties and like the fandoms really start to grow, and especially as we continue to like change the tier 2 landscape into what it is going to be next year. Just seeing more fandoms build around those teams, and I hope that having these brands come into play will become a big part of that.
Yeah, I got to talk about this in my voiceover for the Whoopley interview. I said it in the interview as well, Grapes. Like, I'm not personally a fan of like Brandon Sanderson or OTK. I honestly don't know much about either of them. But it was really cool to me to see like other people react so positively. And I mean, we've been saying this with like influencer teams for like a year plus now of like it feels like the future of just attaching names to teams, doing anything to bring money and publicity into the space. And I mean, this just feels like an extension of that. Brandon Sanderson, not an influencer in the sense of Disguised Toast or Moist Critical, but is still a notable person that fans can latch on to that, just can only bring positive things to the space. So it's been, I think that's the other thing. All the other changes, like, that we talked about, like we talked a lot about like the money matches, for example, in the interview, we've not exactly seen what that is actually going to turn into just yet.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think like if we're talking initial reactions, right, I do think for Dragonsteel and for Fearx Starforge, I mean, obviously, any brand involvement is good, and then definitely True Fearless. Grapes, we're gonna have to start dealing with True Fearless very
Yeah.
soon here in Tier 3. So
I'm very interested to see how that affects the qualifiers specifically, because I know that, especially with some of the teams that are coming in, we'll talk about them in a little bit. There are some very new players that have not really had any competitive experience that will be participating in the NACLQs for the summer split under this True Fearless mode. And so seeing what that looks like and if teams can really take advantage of that is going to be very interesting to me. The money match is also going to be pretty cool. I know that they're going to be taking place like during week 4 and 5, which is when the LCS has their time off, but not all of the games are going to be money matches. I know that Blue Otter tweeted their schedule, and their money matches are against Supernova and CCG, which I think are pretty cool. I'm also noticing, just scrolling through that schedule, that like Winthrop and Maryville or Winthrop and Dragonsteel are going to be playing against each other that weekend. And then
hell
there's
yeah.
Also there's also, I think, Supernova Dragonsteel there, so that was the matchup that we were hoping for. So I think that at least some of those will be money matches.
Heart of
so
Amateur.
I'm hoping.
I need to tell them to play up to play up the Heart of Amateur versus Kings and Collegiate. Like, come on, let's just go back to 2021. Like,
yeah, I know that is a matchup that's happening that weekend. I don't know if it's specifically a money match or not, but I definitely
it better be.
Yeah, I hope that the broadcast really goes all out. That there's some like interesting like stuff that they do with like some trash talk and things like that. That could be pretty fun. So. A lot of cool changes for the split, and we'll talk about the biggest one kind of at the end that is not completely related to the NACL, but Hawk, we can start talking about the actual games themselves as well as we move on to our next headline, as we did have some series that occurred. 8 of our 10 organizations in the Challengers League did play against each other, as we had some big winners in Dragonsteel taking down FlyQuest, Supernova taking down CCG, Furic Starforce taking down Disguised, and TLC taking down AoE. What was your biggest takeaway from the games that we got to watch this week?
Yeah, I'll keep it short and sweet because mine are pretty clear. One is that this league might have more parity than we were expecting. Grapes, Maryville beating FlyQuest at all, much less 2-0, was honestly really surprising. There were a lot of questions about how would Maryville look without Niles, in game being a shot caller for them. I don't think this is a hot take to say that. I think most people would say that Zamudo is a better mechanical top laner than Niles, but I mean, Niles has been the captain of that team for years, right? He's been the guy for them. So a huge win for Maryville without their captain, now behind the scenes as a coach. And then, of course, they didn't have Scary Jerry either. They had Rocco. And Rocco is still very good in his own right, but obviously, not the same as Jerry. So to find that win 2-0 was big. And I think whether that reflects more on this Maryville team or on this FlyQuest team kind of remains to be seen. But that to me signals that we're going to see more parity than maybe people were expecting. Supernova also going to 3 games with CCG also says that. Also, Disguised is way worse than I think most people thought. People were really hyped about this roster coming into the split. But similarly to the last Disguise, not getting off to the start that they would have wanted.
Yeah, it was not the greatest showing. They were running with a sub. They had Keetong playing down there in the support position, which, by the way,
this is true.
I feel like Keetong just the only time we ever see that guy play is as a sub for a tier 2 team. Can you remember the last tier 3 roster that he was a part of? The last time he was starting anywhere? I'm trying to think, because he subbed on Fly Challengers for a little bit. I think he played on C9 maybe at some point too. That guy's just the support substitute merchant.
I mean, what has he even played competitive since spring of 23?
He was on some Radiance team maybe at some point, right? Or that was the last time I remember.
Are you sure?
Yeah. Always getting jump scared whenever I see that guy playing.
I guess it's harder to find tier 3 subs now though, since tier 3 games are at the same time as NACL. I wonder if that's a factor.
Yeah, it probably is. I mean, that's why Rockboom was, I guess, playing for Dragonsteel. By the way, somebody should pick that guy up. He played pretty well, and I think that he's still very good.
So you Grapes, by the way, you're right. Keetong's last tier 3 appearance was on Radiance in May of 2021. And his last competitive appearance, I was right as well, was on FlyQuest Challengers in spring of last year. So it's been a brick for Ketong.
Yeah, he's a sub guy nowadays. I feel like that's kind of what he does.
I don't.
But,
yeah, honestly, don't know how it keeps happening, but I mean, hey, power to him.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're gonna have to wait a little bit to see what that DSG roster actually does look like, but did not see anything super impressive from them in that series. So yeah, definitely agree. The middle of the pack, I think, is going to be consisting of a lot of teams. We still have not seen teams like Blue Water participate yet, or Winthrop. So interested to see how they fit in. I would imagine maybe towards the bottom half of that, if not just like the middle of the pack. But yeah, I think we're gonna have a pretty competitive series split overall, and that is my biggest takeaway, is that it doesn't feel like anybody is super strong or like super like.
I don't know. FearX Starforge kind of made a statement in week 1. I'm gonna keep it a buck with you. I think most people were expecting them to be the second best team. Most reasonable people. Anyone that had Disguised in second place on their tier list is fried. So most reasonable people, I think, had FearX Starforge being maybe the team that could contend with FlyQuest. Clearly, they're not the only ones now. But statement win from them at the very least.
Yeah, I'm interested about FlyQuest. How much Quad leaving that team actually affects them. I feel like we all kind of just assumed that Bradley would slot in fine and like kind of do whatever. Was pretty invisible in that series overall against Dragonsteel. So hopefully he's able to find his footing a little bit. I think Quad was like a pretty vocal person there. So yeah.
Yeah, I have some insider info. We might cut this from the episode, actually, but I have some insider info that Surdy and Bradley did not get along very well in week 1.
Well, still time to mend that gap.
In game, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, they are both very opinionated about how they want to play the game, I think, and that did not align. So, we'll see if that is better for week 2 and beyond. But yeah, that is what I was hearing.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like you're always gonna have the synergy issues. I feel like Quad was relatively vocal, and I guess because having a new voice could change some things. I'm gonna wait on my analysis of Fly, just due to their one series against Dragonsteel for now. But definitely was a bit of a shock. So there's still a lot to analyze and a lot to think about as we go forward in Tier 2. But we can move on to our next headline and talk about Tier 3, where the NACL Open Qualifiers happened last weekend, and 16 teams made it in. Congratulations to Pulstar for going 5-0, taking that win against Dragoons Goons. And we have our groups all the way set up. But before we talk about like the group stage and all of that, Hawk, let's talk about just the tournament as a whole, because it feels like parity, maybe a little bit closer than years past, and things like that as well in Tier 3. So my question to you is, out of all the 16 teams that are still, competing and still in this event, how many of them actually have a legitimate chance of winning this qualifier, taking the crown at first place?
Yeah, a legitimate chance, I would say 4 grapes, which is Nightblood, Pulse, Lotus, and Dragoons Goons, who, surprise, surprise, were the top 4 seeds going into the entire tournament. I still feel like this is just the obvious top 4. This was the teams that we had at the 3-0 mark in the Swiss, and then they all beat each other. But they pretty handily dispatched everybody else in the tournament, like very easily. So I'm not really expecting anyone to actually be able to contend with them, if I'm being completely honest. And also, I'm going to have the really hot take of, even though Pulse beat them, I still think Dragoons Goons is the very obvious favorite to win. Obviously, Pulse proved that, it's possible to beat this team. They're not infallible, but like, if I'm being completely honest, Grapes, Dragoons Goons completely fucking for fun that game, and they should have won. Pulse was trying so hard, and it was all they could do to somehow hold on to that game and win it in 50 minutes or whatever, right? That was not a game that inspired confidence in me for Pulse. And I know it's really easy for me to say Dragoons Goons should just win that if they play each other next time. But I guess, it's easy for me to say they should, right? But still, I feel like Dragoons Goons played a better game even though they lost. So they feel like the number 1 for me, but yeah, reasonable shot. It's that top 4.
I think I'm inclined to agree with you. I am interested to see what happened with Nightblood. I think they lost to Apex as well, like to round
Did they
out
not
their
go 4 and
Swiss
1?
stage. They went 3-2, and so now they're in the
Oh.
group with Dragoons Goons and Gentle Hearts Gaming, which I think are all really solid teams. So that's going to be a group of death a little bit. As is Group A with Polestar, Gravity, and BlackRock, and you could potentially throw Gravity into that mix as well. The only problem, Hawk, of course, is that we saw how badly they got beaten by
They
Nightblood
got
on stream. So that was a tough look.
out. That was a shellacking. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'll have to watch. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I think the problem is just like that they are best of ones, and so seeing that one game from Nightblood versus Gravity, you see Nightblood just win in like 22 minutes, and you're like, okay, Nightblood is definitively better than Gravity. But now they're both at 3-2. Both of them like dropped another game, won another game, basically. So it's hard to tell exactly like where they are just of like the best of ones, especially because we did not get to watch obviously all 80 games of Swiss. So I'm potentially inclined to throw Gravity in there just because I know that Onat and Lunacia can be very big stars for them. I also think a team like Gentle Hearts or BlackRock could sneak into that mix. But in terms of like the highest ceilings, it definitely is those four that you mentioned.
Yeah, I'll be the villain. I don't think anyone can. I don't think Gentle Hearts or BlackRock or Gravity can beat the top teams. I mean, honestly, like Nightblood losing to AMI, I forgot about that. So, yeah, a little tough for them. I feel like they should still be able to pull it together. They feel like one of the only teams that could beat the top teams. But, like, yeah, being really realistically, I feel like this is a very top-heavy qualifier. I think there's going to be a lot of parity for, like, top 8 spots. Like, there's, like, 15, maybe not quite that many. There's, like, 13 teams that I feel like could make top 8. So I think that will be really competitive. And then like maybe someone, could upset Nightblood. Like Nightblood does feel like the number 4 right now. But I do think that these, especially like top 3 teams, Pulse, Lotus, Dragoons, Goons, are just way too good.
Last shout out, Castleberry 4-1, beating BlackRock in their last game. Geiger still a menace on those tanks. He went 10-0 on Zach in that last game, and then I think Azog and Pika Pika. Getting to watch them like play a full tournament together, that is going to be really fun.
That will be fun.
I don't think it's enough to cross that threshold, but they could I think sneak into top 4 if like one of the other teams fumbles a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's definitely possible.
All right, so some teams to watch out for. I think we do agree though that the race to top 8 is going to be way more interesting than potentially like that. Who gets like top 4, who gets promotion.
Especially because our groups feel a little bit imbalanced because of the format changes, which is super interesting, by the way, because, we're generally pretty positive about these format changes, right? Like, the reseeding is a good thing. It makes the day 1 games matter a lot in Swiss. We'll have to see who gets punished for it. Because there were a few teams that, as you say, dropped some games that maybe they should not have.
Yeah. I don't know if you want to open that can of worms right now, but I think overall dynamic reseeding was good. Getting to watch the team like Wang or Castleberry jump up.
Was not trying to say that the format changes were bad. I was trying to say that they were exciting. I want to make that very clear. I'm definitely excited to see who continues to step up. Positive connotation. Sorry, I'm tired.
No, you're good, and I feel like it is interesting to note that like that's those dynamic seedings are part of the reasons why things might have gone different than another format than if the tournament was in the old format, which is interesting, and I think overall a good change. It rewards winning early and rewards winning often, which I think are all things that we should be rewarding in this space. So we'll continue to follow the group stage. Make sure to check out our streams this week. Which games are we covering to this weekend, Hawk? I think we're doing. Hold on, let me take a look at the schedule real quick. We'll be grabbing.
We got BlackRock and what is it, Gravity that they're playing, and we have Apex, Mission Impossible, and Contingent.
Yeah, so good matchups there. I am excited to see this Apex team. I know that some people maybe doubted them a little bit, including myself, but they have like 3/5 of the BlackRock squad, I think, originally from last split.
Hey, so you know who didn't doubt them?
Yeah. So playing against contingent. That should be pretty good. So make sure you tune into that on NACL too. The last thing that we have here in our headlines before we move on to our part 2 is the America's Tier 2 tournament, which just got announced like as we were about to hit record officially over the air today. 6 teams, 2 from the NACL, and then 2 from both Brazil Academy and LAN Academy as well. They're going to be playing in a single round robin followed by a double elimination bracket in Sao Paulo. What are your reactions to this? I was honestly kind of surprised that we got any updates on this at all. It feels like it was a while since like they talked about it in any capacity. Then with the Americas League coming out, and they thought, maybe things have changed a little bit, but we are going to have it, and it looks pretty fun.
Yeah, Grapes, it's funny too. I feel like I can say this now. We actually asked Whipley about this when we talked to him 2 weeks ago. And the answer we basically got was soon TM, and we cut that from the episode because it ended up coming out, a week later. But yeah, so I was also surprised that we actually heard something so quickly. So that was funny. But yeah, I honestly, I know that this is a really big deal for the space. My thoughts are pretty simple on this though. We're like, hey, it's really cool. It's not a big tournament. I don't think we were expecting a big tournament. It's only a week long. It's only 6 teams. But I think it's going to be really fun. It's a great way to engage the regions, to get some, some sort of EMEA Masters kind of vibes. I would really like if this could be like the precursor to something larger, because my fear is that the fact that it's so small, and depending on how the publicity is for it, my fear is that it won't get that much attention when it happens, and it'll kind of just come and go. I really hope that's not the case, though. I know I'm personally very excited to watch this, as someone that both enjoys the CBLOL and LCS, obviously. And, it's happening in September, which is usually, kind of a dead month, after, all the regional finals and stuff, I believe, which are happening in, end of August. So it'll be a fun, mid-late September tournament, kind of as we get hyped up for Worlds as well. Something to tie us over. We've been talking a lot about, how Riot can continue to fill some of the dead air in the yearly schedule, which is going to continue into 2025. So I'm really excited about this. I'm happy that we finally get information. I feel like everything that has come out about it is honestly what we speculated on, but the fact that it is happening, guys, we've made it. America's Tier 2 is here, is a good thing.
Yeah, there's a couple of interesting things that I want to unpack here a little bit while discussing what is happening in this situation, or with the America's Tier 2 tournament happening. The first of which is that you did mention it's like a dead time. Another note about format, actually, is that this year the promotion tournament is happening before the NACL Grand Finals, I believe. So the promotion tournament happening from September 2nd to 7th, the finals happening on the 9th, and then about a week and a half later is when that Tier 2 tournament starts. So I think overall it's a
good
better
thing, by the way.
It felt weird to have promotion
Yes.
after all of the NACL happened, so I'm glad that they made that change.
Yeah.
And then the other stuff that,
I know we
that
talked
ended up,
about that. Sorry. Oh, sorry. I was going to say, I know we talked about that, but playing promotion tournament earlier is definitely a good thing.
Yeah, preventing the potential mental booms of
preventing the
some of
mental
the
boom
teams that get
month
knocked
long
out.
of
Yeah.
scrims.
Even if it's by 1
anyway.
week, sometimes that 1 week
Yeah.
makes all the difference. The other things are that I had this other note. They mentioned in the article.
I bungled it, didn't I?
What's up? Oh, no, you're good.
I bungled it. I stole your train of thought. Anyways, go ahead.
No. I got it again. It's mentioned in the article.
Okay,
that,
we're so back.
There was no correlation between this tournament and then the eventual guest slots for the new Americas region that's happening for 2025, which I thought was interesting in that this doesn't necessarily mean anything for that, and maybe it's just Riot gets to choose kind of what organization they want to put in there for that first split, which could be a little bit interesting. I don't know if they're going to get any backlash behind that, but the fact that there was no connection kind of shocked me a little bit.
My tinfoil hat theory is that they're using the guest slot as the way to finally lure Moist Esports into League. That's my tinfoil hat theory. And that is the reason I think that this has no impact. Because I think there is an org that they want. Whether it's more Moist Esports or they want to give it Disguised or whoever. I think they want to give it to an org that they feel will be best for LCS and not whoever necessarily deserves it. But deserve carries a lot of different meanings. So that, I don't want to like talk too negatively, but that is my theory.
And yeah, that potentially, I mean, that would make a lot of sense from a business perspective. So, having that announcement kind of furthers that point. Last note about this: $75,000 prize pool, Hawk. That's a lot of money, especially for some of these players that are not making a ton. Yeah. So if you are a developmental squad in North America, like, not that there wasn't an incentive to win the Challengers League already, but I mean, getting the chance to go down to Brazil and win even more money. I mean, that's probably more than some of these players' salaries for the entire split. So that will be a pretty big incentive. And I mean, I'm assuming that all the NA teams are going to be pretty big favorites. And so
yes,
pretty good opportunity.
There's already been Twitter discussion about how NACL is going to absolutely run CBLOL Academy and LLA Academy. We'll see. I do feel like it's a little bit of like America in basketball versus the world right now, but America has still lost in basketball, so we can't sleep on those teams. I do think a few $1,000s would change my life right now. Please hire me, but so I just know it would for these kids too. And it is cool that there's a big prize pool to play for. I know that's going to be an amazing experience for the players that get to go. I mean, Sao Paulo, it seems like a really amazing place. I've never been, but it seems great. So I think it's an amazing opportunity. Like it's a land on steroids, Grapes, for these players. They get to go to an international, and that is a really cool thing. Last thing, full Fearless as well for the best of 5. So more Fearless coming from Riot. International tournaments.
Yeah, a lot to be excited about for the end of this split. We will continue to follow how all of that ends up flowing back into this America's League discussion as we learn more information and as the teams start to get finalized. But that's going to do it for our headlines today. We're going to move on to our part 2, where we're going to be analyzing or aligning both teams from the NACLQ and the NACL. We came to the start of the summer split, and we never did any power rankings or something on our show. We did power rankings last split, or a tier list of some sort, but we wanted to spice things up a little bit for summer and also make sure that we give some love to our NACL qualifier teams as well. So we set up an alignment chart for these teams. We saw a lot of these organizations on their social medias put alignment charts of like causing problems on purpose, like that whole thing. And so that inspired me. That inspired us to do a little bit of the same for some of the teams that we're going to be covering this split, Hawk.
Yeah, it's a different flavor of power rankings. I know, Grapes, we both posted our NACL power rankings on Twitter. We've not done any sort of qualifier stuff. We're going to be doing both the NACL and the qualifiers, by the way. NACL first, qualifiers after. So make sure you stick around for both. But yeah, look, here on Salty Runback, it's all about repackaging different flavors of presenting information. So for this split's power rankings, Grapes specifically came up with this idea. Let's do an alignment chart.
Yeah, so not only is developmental League of Legends about winning and things like that, it's also about the entertainment value. If you're not going to be exciting, you're not going to provide the good content, why should we even watch you at all? And so this chart should hopefully give you an idea of who's going to be fun to watch and also who's going to be good. So if you are a fan who values one or the other, you can take a look at this chart and pick whatever suits you the best. So we're going to go team by team, talk about each of those rosters for a little bit. First for the NACL and then for the qualifiers. We have top of standings, bottom standings in our x-axis, and entertainment value high to low in our y-axis. So Hawk, let's start us off with with whatever team you want. Go ahead and pick one and we can discuss.
All right. I mean, we can just go down the line here as I have them arranged at the bottom. AOE going to start us off. Grapes, are we feeling high entertainment, low entertainment, bottom or top of standings, somewhere in between?
Okay. So this roster consists of Moosehater, NXI, Cupic, Wixie, and Breezy. I got distracted because you already have some sort of idea of where you want to put them. They look pretty rough in their first series that they played.
Yeah, not great.
I don't. Yeah, the entertainment value at the very least would be just because, there's just an an eccentric cast of characters that they've put together. You know, Moose Hater
It is
making
quite a
return.
roster.
Yeah, and Cupik, who's a rookie playing mid, I think for the first time ever in a competitive setting. We saw him actually not play mid in his first game. Went down to the bottom lane to play Lux. I think Wixie and Breezy are pretty good, but honestly, like if I see an AoE game, I'm not super inclined to tune in Hawk. I don't know about you, but they might be towards the bottom of entertainment value for me as well.
I'm down to put them like here because I do think like they got Moose Hater, they got the Garen guy. That's fun. They have Cupik. I don't know.
Like the Harlem, put in like the Harlem Globetrotters or the Savannah Bananas in like a competitive league. I feel like they're just gonna. They got the retired guy.
That's
they got the Lux
crazy.
main,
That
they got
is
the
an
VTuber,
absolutely
they got the Garen main.
wild comparison.
Like they got a fun little cast, and some of their games might be fun, but also, those teams like play as entertainment as like their main, I guess, like appeal. I don't know if that's going to be like super fun to watch in a competitive.
I'll put them like here. Well, I'm going to put them like here. I think they're
there are
below
to love
average
this
for
team and
entertainment
reasons to hate this
value. Yeah, exactly. I think they're below average for entertainment value, mostly because I think this team is going to be pretty bad, if I'm being honest with you. Like you said, they have good parts. Like we've seen Moose Hater be successful. We Wixie and Breezy we do think are good, right? But we saw it last split. Wixie and Breezy weren't enough for AoE, and I think the rest of their team is probably worse than it was last split. So that's tough.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that'll make them tough to watch. But I do think they're like, I don't know, especially if this roster's a complete train wreck. Some people are into that. So maybe there's some entertainment value to be had there, especially because it is, as you say, quite a clash of personalities. So I'm willing to put them towards the middle of entertainment value, but they're definitely not at the top.
All right, move on to our next team.
But,
I assume we're going alphabetical,
yeah.
which means Blue Water is going to be next.
All right, we can put this team up here.
Okay, they're definitely going to be higher in entertainment value. I'm very excited to watch this team, specifically because they have Samikin and Levitate in their carry roles.
They got Samikin!
Yeah, like those guys are going to be rookies. They're going to be hungry. They're going to be coming in. The rest, the roster might not look super high level on paper, but we did mention how generally there's going to be a decent amount of parity in this league, Hawk, and I could see a team like Blue Water if everyone kind of hits their highs, if music is playing, as music can play, if Quacker's having a good split, if Samikin and Levitate, these rookies, can pop off, I could see them being pretty good. I could see them towards like closer to the middle of the pack than even an AoE. I don't know.
I respect the optimism. I do really like all the players on this team. Grapes, like all friends of the show, all really good players in their own right. I just think this roster has the same problems that like Lit Esports had, where all these players are really good in tier 3 and probably each individually deserving of shots in the NACL, but all together this is not an NACL caliber team, if that makes sense. I really worry for the Levitate Rovex bot lane. I think I'm really happy for Levitate that he's getting an NACL shot. Rovex has been performing at a high level in support for a few years now. I just like, again, I think together they don't stack up to the likes of, even the Wixies and Breezes of the world, right? So yeah, I worry for this team. I got flamed on Twitter by our Blue Water friends for putting them at the bottom of my power rankings. I really like this team. I really do. And I'm excited to watch them, which is why I put them up here for entertainment value. But Grapes, I do fear that they will just be like solidly 10th place. And for that reason, I don't feel that I can put them higher in either entertainment value or here in the standings list. I don't know. If you think they'll be better than AoE, I think that's maybe a little bit cope for our boys, but I'm willing to do it if you think that's the case.
Well, hey, we know that these two teams are actually going to be playing against each other. Blue Water's first game is against AoE this Saturday.
This is true. This is going to be a big one.
that could mean a little bit. So maybe we could leave it there for now. I am very excited to watch them, but again, it might be a little bit.
I'm very excited. I like this team. I really do. And I'm excited for them.
Okay. we'll keep them there for now. We can move on to CCG. I believe they're the next alphabetically. This team, I think, is going to be a little bit more towards the middle of the pack. They have 3/5 of that Cincinnati Fear roster that impressed a lot of people last spring. You have them right in the middle. You think they're just your perfect average team?
I think they're going to be pretty average. Yeah, I think they're going to be very middle of the pack. Taking Supernova to a 3-game banger was pretty fun. I actually got a chance to talk very briefly to Chad at the LCS this past week, and he's like, man, we should have 2-0'd them. I think Supernova. I think CCG will be good. I think they'll be a fun team to watch. Crimson being on the team, I definitely think boosts their entertainment value stock just because, we'll get to see how he does in the NACL. Yeah, Grapes, I'm curious to hear your thoughts. I'm willing to put them a little lower on the standings because basically the reason I have them here is I still think they're like my 6th or 7th place team, but I think there's a lot of parity. So I think we're going to have a lot of teams kind of in this middle line here, but I'm willing to move them wherever you'd like.
I'd like to move them up in entertainment value for 2 reasons. The first of which is that we have Shochi and Minwi on the same team in True Fearless, which means that they're going to be playing a ton of wonky stuff.
Shochi's entertainment value for sure.
We already saw Minwi play Ornn in his first ever competitive game of the split, which maybe was a little bit unexpected, but, that guy can whip some stuff out, as can Shochi. And number 2, Crimson's on this team. And Crimson, of course, Sniper's twin brother. We saw him play pretty well in CCG. I'm excited to see how he does in a more higher level competitive environment. So I think entertainment value, they're going to be a pretty fun team to tune into, just to see, A, what kind of wacky stuff Minwi and Shochi are going to play, and B, how's Crimson doing, and can he also hit his goal of playing in the LCS next year to play against his brother?
Yeah, I like it. I'm willing to put them there if you're good with it. We probably should keep it moving. We're kind of taking a long time here. Disguised, they're going to be they're actually fairly visible. Grapes, I'm curious as to where we think, after the 2-0, obviously they had Keetong. I'm probably putting them very close to CCG in general. I think this should be a fun team to watch.
I think
maybe a little bit lower. I don't know.
I agree with you. I think that they're pretty middle of the pack, at least at this point, around that 4th, maybe a little bit, maybe towards the right of the axis, but not too much farther away from CCG. And then in terms of entertainment value, honestly, this team, pretty average to me. I'm not gonna lie. They have Yukino, who's exciting.
I guess it's more because they have it's Disguise. Yeah, maybe they're lower than CCG. I'm willing to put them here. I think they're still a little bit above average, just because they're Disguised.
I think they are above average.
Boring to watch last split.
Both. Oh my god, you really can't see them. Yeah, they were pretty boring to watch this week. I'm not gonna lie. Fear Starforge kind of tore him apart.
Yeah.
I hope that Tenacity has a bit of a bounce back. He did not look like the Tenacity that I remember him as, from watching tier 2 in 2022 and things like that. So I have my eyes on him specifically. Tomo, he didn't have his proper support, so maybe that's saying something. But I think that's a pretty fair assessment of them, right around there.
Yeah. All right. Now we have Maryville Dragonsteel. This one is really interesting. I would have them here. Or maybe here.
Interesting. Okay. One thing about Maryville, of course, is they have that new roster coming in with Zamudo, and I honestly thought he played very well in that series against FlyQuest. Specifically
Zamudo
on
had
that
a
Poppy.
Great series.
He played Poppy in game 2. He dropped the ego a little bit. He played a champion that you would not necessarily associate with him back in his older days, and I think that could be a sign of good things to come for the squad. I definitely slept on Maryville just / Dragonsteel a little bit coming into this season. I had him 5th in my power rankings. I think they could be a little bit more towards the top of the standings. We forget that this team finished 2nd last split.
Yeah, I think I want to keep him here because, again, I think we have a lot of a middle of the pack here. But I do think I think that the reason I have this team average entertainment value, by the way, is again, it's just average, right? I don't think they're boring. I don't think they're super exciting. I do think the fact that Zamudo's on the team, Zamudo's a fun player to watch. He helps boost him a little bit. Maybe they could be at the top of the axis right there. I don't think they'll stand head and shoulders above the pack Grapes, which is why I would still have them around this area. Just because I think we're gonna have a lot of teams kind of in this pack.
I think where you move them now is actually a better assessment, probably. So
okay, all right, I like
that. I'm happy with this right now for Dragonsteel. Also, Brandon Sanderson, so maybe the entertainment value is a little bit higher because of that.
Yeah.
What's our next
True.
team? Is it Fear?
We got Fear X Starforge.
Okay. Well, I was very impressed by
They're
how this
definitely
team
going
looked.
down here somewhere.
So are we in agreement that they are power ranked like 2 behind FlyQuest at this point?
Yeah.
Or are there other teams that we think could be in that mix? Like Supernova, Team Liquid also are teams that we haven't mentioned yet.
I think there's teams that could be in this mix, but for me, I think Fear is pretty obviously number 2. I'm willing to even bump Maryville up a little bit and move Fear more down this way. I think Fear is very obviously my number 2. I had them as such in my preseason power rankings as well.
Okay. Definitely think they're towards the top of the standings. Entertainment value is interesting. They have some LCS veterans. I think having XU on this team makes it pretty fun. And I hope that there will be some co-streaming aspect with them as well to add to the hype a little bit there. I mean, these are 5 players that have played at least a full split in the LCS at some point in their careers, and so they know what it is. They know what it takes to have the personality and to be a part of this competitive atmosphere. So while their series wasn't particularly entertaining against Disguised, I'm inclined to say that they'd be a decently entertaining team to watch this split.
Yeah, I'm down to move them up a little bit. I think this will be a fun team. I'm really excited about this Fear team, to be honest. I do think, if their goal is to win, they've signed a great team. They have a lot of veterans. I know some people weren't super excited about the abundance of veterans, but I'm specifically XU. I'm happy for already talking a bit of shit after beating Disguised. So
that was banger.
I feel like this is a solid placement. And then we have their brothers at the top of the tier list here. I mean, Grapes, I don't know about you. I think FlyQuest losing 2-0 to Maryville was surprising, but does not change the fact that I think they are going to absolutely run this league.
I'm a little bit hesitant now, just because of the stuff that we're talking about with the mid substitutions. Quad looked very good for FlyQuest, and Bradley did not look that great for FlyQuest challengers or FlyQuest NZXT. So I think they could be, a little bit. They're not the runaway favorites like I think they were last split. They might be a little bit closer to Fear and some of these other squads as well. I still think they're power ranked 1, and I still think having Sturdy on your team makes your entertainment value very high. So I think you're in a decent spot right now.
They've also got Bradley, too. Bradley's a really fun player for me to watch. I think the return of Bradley, Grapes, we've been calling him the prodigal son of mid lane. I don't know. I think there's a lot of cool narratives revolving around that team. You also still have Sajed. I think there's a lot of reasons to watch this FlyQuest team. I don't know. How do you feel about their placement?
Looks pretty good. Quick question. Over under 1.5 games played by Cryogen this split, who has announced that they're 6 men to replace Chime.
So I've heard that Chime, the reason they have the 6 man is that Chime just might not be playing the whole split. So I would give it, do you mean series, 1.5 series?
Yeah, sure, 1.5 series.
I would give it over just because I don't think they would have picked up Cryogen if they didn't plan on using him in any capacity, if that makes sense.
Okay.
I feel like there's a reason that and it seems to be that Chime just can't play the entire split.
Now, do you think that hurts their power ranking a little bit? Because I personally was impressed by watching Cryogen in some of the amateur tournaments that we got to watch, but Chime was a very big part of that FlyQuest team winning last split, which is maybe why we could move him around a little bit depending on what we think about that.
I actually think, look, if Cryogen's going to be playing most of the split, it would hurt their power ranking quite substantially, but considering that we don't really know, I would hesitate to move them now. But yeah, if Cryogen plays a substantial amount of the split, I think that actually hurts them a lot, Graves, because I do think Chime is arguably, it's hard to say on a team with Surdy and Shaden, but arguably their best player.
Yeah. Okay. I think we're on the same boat here, so we'll leave him there for now.
We'll leave him there, but if Cryogen plays a lot, maybe they fall below Fear at the very least.
Yeah. Okay. We got 3 teams left. I think the next one is TL, or is it Supernova?
And then we got Supernova, yeah. Oh, that's also really invisible.
Oh,
wow.
Terrible. Okay.
Dude, Tier Maker Dark Mode is really doing us in. Well, we get the little swoop.
Okay. This is an interesting team. They've replaced Shochi and Array with Toasty and Len. So, taking out some more experienced players, maybe with some newer faces. I think this is a pretty entertaining team to watch. They were very entertaining in their series against CCG, I will say.
Yeah.
So I'm okay with having them high entertainment value. In terms of standings, is interesting to consider because they did falter in the playoffs after having a very solid regular season, including beating FlyQuest. But interesting placement by you, Hawk. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I had Supernova powering third coming into the split. I do think Maryville has already showed me that I might have been doubting them a little too hard, though. So I think like Supernova towards the top of the soup, I'm willing to put them like pretty next to Maryville. I think this is gonna be a very good team. I think Lens is an insane player. And so yeah, I think Toasty arguably a bit of a downgrade over Shochi, but Lens is arguably an upgrade over Array, right? So I think they're going to be really good. I do think the team will be very entertaining. Lens is so fun to watch. Kenvi is so fun to watch. The fact that they have Toasty is cool. Whether or not they're the most entertaining team, like I'm willing to kind of like move them up or down, but I do think at least left to right, I feel pretty confident about this placement.
Yeah, definitely think that their standing is right. Maybe FlyQuest is more entertaining than them. I don't know. We might have to shuffle that around a little bit.
Like this.
Yeah. Damn, we have CCG pretty high. But honestly, like I'm very excited to watch them play. Like that's a fun roster that we can get into.
It's a fun team.
Later.
We can put them here.
All right, sounds
All
good.
right.
We got two teams left.
Team
Winthrop
Liquid
and TL. Team Liquid Challengers, I feel like is going to be a pretty middle-ish of the pack team, if not like around that soup of Disguise, Dragonsteel, and Supernova. Do you think they're better than DSG or not, though? Is the question. I don't know.
That's a hard question. I think they should be. I'll be straight. I had Team Liquid lower on my preseason power ranking than Disguised, by actually a whole tier. I think Team Liquid would be fine. I would have them around here. I think they will arguably be better than CCG. Arguably worse than Disguised, Supernova, and Maryville. I will be honest, entertainment value-wise, this team is a little low for me. Keel is cool to watch. Everything else is kind of like, okay, that's fine. Yeah,
they're also
curious to
like
see
one
your
of the
thoughts.
only rosters that are like fully running it back. Everybody else has made some sort of change,
Yes.
except for Team Liquid Challengers, and I think that
Which
hurts
I
their
do think
entertainment
hurts
value
their
a little bit.
entertainment value. Honestly,
Yep.
like they could go down even a little bit. Yeah.
Also, they were a very boring team to watch, I feel like, during the split. Like they would just drag games
Yeah.
on and kind of just force other teams to lose, or like let other teams like lose to themselves. And so maybe I think entertainment value not as high as some of these other squads, and so that is why I'm okay with putting them here. Our last team is Winthrop University, which is basically St. Louis University at this point. It's the same team that won CLOL, except they are replacing Surdy with Denethor. I saw so many people putting Winthrop so low in people's tier list when they just beat
They're cooked.
Maryville. But they just beat Maryville. And I don't know if Surdy, Surdy for Denethor obviously is a change, right? But if you're a team that like just took down the team that finished second NACL, you make one roster swap. And honestly, Surdy had a fine series in that CLOL Grand Finals, but it was not just him that won that series. It was kind of everybody really stepping up. I think that Winthrop is very solidly middle of the pack and could even contend it for a top five spot in the league. I mean, remember Wildcard, which is a lot of the same roster, finished fourth in the regular season before having a bit of an unfortunate playoff round. So this is a team that I think is actually going to be on that right side of the spectrum. I don't know what you think.
Oh, that's a hot take from me. I have them.
I think it's a top half team.
I have them seventh. Eighth. I have them a very strong eighth, though. Okay, just hear my pitch for entertainment value, though. They're at the top of entertainment value for a few reasons. One, it is Winthrop University playing with exactly one Winthrop player, which is so fucking funny to me. It is Winston University. Yeah. Also, they have Aaron. That's a reason to watch. They have Denethor. That's just a reason to watch as well. Finally, we get to see him in the NACL. They have Skytech and Fearless. Like, this team is going to be a banger to watch for better or for worse. Also, like, Winnie teams. Yeah. So, top entertainment value, I will not be taking questions at this time. I don't know how good they'll be. I do think they'll be good. I agree. Like, I think people had them ridiculously low in their tier list. I think anyone that had them below either Blue Otter or AoE is completely cooked in the brain. I'm sorry, guys. These
Okay,
two
but
bottom teams, I feel like, are definitely getting relegated. This
like
feels
think
high
about
to
it.
me. But
You can't put this team and Dragonsteel substantially far apart because at the very least 4/5 of each of the rosters played against each other just a week ago, and it was very convincingly a SLU win.
but that's one best of 5. Like, don't get me wrong. Yeah, SLU, they won CLOL. That's awesome. They
were
peaked
two
at the right
series.
time, and
It was like a 2-series.
and
It was a 2-game difference
I
in the regular
I
season.
have finally
for challengers
seen
between those teams too.
I have finally seen the light on Aaron Lee. However, it was one series, and the rosters are not exactly the same. I have a hard time being like, oh, Winthrop is going to be so much better than Maryville as a result.
I don't think they're going to be better. I definitely think Dragonsteel is higher up on the tier list, but the fact that I feel like they're still pretty far in our alignments right now is what I'm saying. Like
how about this?
Middle, I can accept. I think that like Wildcard
All right.
was a very average team last split, despite their expectations not really being there. So placing them right in the middle of the pack is fine with me. I think Denethor, pretty much side grade compared to Quacker in my head, and then Skytech probably better than Doxa. So I think they upgraded. They were top 4 in the regular season last split. I'm going to be the biggest Winthrop shills, or I don't know what we're supposed to call this team, but I guess Winthrop shills for the rest of this year.
I think right now, Grapes, we can stake our claim that we both think that Winthrop they will not get eliminated in the first round of playoffs, right? They won't. So we can say
again,
we can say we were
parity
here and we said it. Yeah, there is parity. I think this is the soup that we're kind of looking at, though, these middle 6 teams. Grapes, we got to keep it moving because we are 25 minutes into this part 2 and we've not started with the qualifiers.
Okay.
So
we'll speed run the quals a little bit now as we go over.
Yeah. But take everyone a good look for those audio-only listeners, which I don't think we have many, but Blue Otter and AoE towards the bottom of the standings. We have Winthrop, CCG, DSG, and TL as a soup kind of in the middle of the standings. Supernova and Dragonsteel a little bit above them. And then FearX, Starforge, and FlyQuest challengers at the top of the standings. Winthrop is the most entertaining team. Then we've got a kind of soup of CCG, Supernova, FlyQuest, Blue Otter, and FearX Starforge a little bit below them. Maryville, Dragonsteel in the middle, and then DSG, AoE, and Team Liquid a little bit less fun to watch. So that should give you a primer of what our expectations are for the NACL. But going on to the qualifiers, Grapes, as you said, we're going to speed run this one a little bit. Starting with Apex Mission Impossible. I feel like pretty mid on the entertainment value and pretty middle low on the promotion point spectrum.
I think that they are pretty. I would put them like pretty much center if I had to make a choice. They went 4-1 in Swiss, which does mean at least a little bit in terms of what we are to expect from this team. Obviously, it was a win that we were not expecting them to have, but it was a win regardless, so we have to give them credit for that. Decoy, Zalt, and Pockets have been playing together for a while now. They also have Baz, who I thought I was pretty high on, and Lojaz from Abandoned Kittens. I think they're going to be pretty much in the middle of the pack. I don't think they're going to promote, but I think they will contend or at least be in that like matchup to get into the quarterfinals at the very least, if not actually getting top 8 in a couple of events.
Yeah, I think if a team gets one top 8 and then one GSL appearance, they'll probably be like middle here on the promotion point spectrum. So I'll go with that and say that's probably my expectation for Apex is like they probably hit one top 8. If they hit 2 top 8s, that's great for them. They would definitely be higher. I do think Grapes entertainment perspective, this team does not have the biggest personality, so I am putting them lower.
That's fair.
I don't know if you agree with that. Yeah.
Personalities
coming up next.
Oh man,
BlackRock.
Okay. What? This is an interesting one. I did not get to watch much of them in the Swiss stage.
I didn't get to watch much of them either. They're definitely up on entertainment value. The Inori squared, Inori B is a good personality.
It's Inori squared and B squared because you have a B
and B
on
squared
that team as well.
That's true.
These will be fun. Collimer's coaching them, which I think gives them a little bit of a boost.
Yep.
I think they're around there for me. I think you have them in a decent spot. Depending on where some of these other teams land, I might want to push them a little bit towards the middle in terms of promotion points, because I'm not 100% sold on how well this team's going to work together. Specifically, just Inori and Julian, or Menace is his name now, playing together. That concerns me just a bit, but it should be a fun team.
Yeah.
They went 3-2.
I'm not as high on this team as others as well, so I'm actually kind of down to like bump them down a little bit and promotion points. I do think this will be a fun team, though.
The Inori B interviews are going to go crazy if they win. I'm excited about that.
Yes.
Castleberry, another 4-1 team, surprisingly. And Hawk, I don't know about you, but I'm very excited about this team all of a sudden because of the fact that Azog and Pika Pika look like a very, very entertaining bot lane to watch. And so I think their top side is going to be fine. That bottom lane, very, very exciting to me. I think that they could be pretty good and could contend for a top 4 if somebody fumbles.
Yeah, I think this Castleberry team is good as well. I'm only putting them marginally above BlackRock in the promotion points because, again, I think we have such a strong like top 4 teams that are going to kind of take up the eastern quadrant of our compass here. But I do think this Castleberry team is going to be really, really fun. I think they will be quite good, and I'm willing to put them like I think around here.
Yep, that looks good to me.
Sweet. All right,
not a ton of personalities just yet.
Yeah, not yet,
okay.
but we'll get them in.
This team consists of Sandflame, Wenwin, Titan, Warcyclone, and Miracle. I do think their bot lane is very good. If I had to pick out a part of their team that like stood out to me, it definitely is Warcyclone and Miracle. Miracle, of course, from St. Clair. Warcyclone from a bunch of various teams, including, I think, CB Gaming last summer. They could be slightly entertaining, but I think where you have them is pretty fine.
Yeah. I think this is a good team. I think this is a team filled with players that are kind of... in an inflection point of their careers, looking to build those personalities that have just yet to be built yet, looking to, pick up some big games under their belt and kind of build their careers out. So I think, this team I don't ultimately expect to be that competitive, but I think, it's big for them to make the GSL stage, Grapes, and I'm excited to see what they do.
Yeah, bot lane matchup for that series between Apex and Contingent is going to be fun. It's going to be on our stream on Sunday, so make sure you check that out. What's next?
I don't think we need to talk about this one.
Oh, the Goons. Okay. I think that this team is going to be on the right. Entertainment value also all the way up. You have Dragoon. You have just like an NACL caliber bot lane. My only hesitation is I know that Array and Kisno aren't the biggest talkers, but the rest of the team is, so it should be fun.
But you got Dragoon, Sudsy, and Daption. Those guys are like varying degrees of vibers. So I think this team's going to be very fun to watch. It already was. They played the craziest game of League of Legends I've maybe seen in 2024 so far already.
That was, even though it was a loss, good for them. I think you've placed them well.
Sweet. We'll keep it moving. Ducky Getters, they have to be up here just for the logo.
It's a great logo. I also think Enthralled is really exciting. I'm very glad that this team, snuck in to the GSL stage. The game that we got to cover of them, round 4 against Castleberry, Enthralled had a terrible game, and it was actually Rough Beans.
Yeah,
who really stood out in the mid lane. I got to talk to Slayer a little bit after. Shout out to Slayer over on the Salt Mine, who was covering Rough Beans all of ACL. And he was saying that this guy was like beating, players like Sudsy in ACL for a majority of the split, and so that was pretty surprising to hear because we have not seen him play in this space just yet. But from the game that we watched, plus all the vouchers that I'm getting, I'm pretty excited about this team.
Yeah, Rough Beans I think is the player to watch for sure. I think this team will be entertaining. Grapes ultimately, I think this is one of those teams that is happy to be here, but I don't think that should downplay like the achievement that they made to get here. And I do think, for a team with some new players, I'm very excited to watch them.
You have them below Contingent in terms of rankings. I might want to push back.
I can honestly move Contingent down. I mean, I feel like we could do something like this. I do have them below Contingent. I think that they're
similar though, at the very least.
Yeah, I think they're similar.
Okay.
Contingent probably has a higher floor. Like, I think maybe Ducky Getters has a higher ceiling, but Contingent has a higher floor.
I very much agree with that. So I'm down with where we are right now. the higher floor teams probably lower in entertainment value in general. So makes sense. Gentle Hearts Gaming.
Yeah,
Um,
that's a heart.
this is an interesting team. What are your thoughts on them?
Yeah, Gentle Hearts had a really disappointing OQ, to be honest. I think most people expect them to be a top 8 team. This is a team that consists of PCL, Cross, Zhao Danny, Devin, and Clyde. Grapes, I know, we like some of the players on this team. I do think, kind of in that same tier of AMI, where I expect them to, like, be happy to hit top 8s. I probably have them too high on entertainment value. Like,
Yeah, I was
I do
about to
think some of
say.
these players are fun to watch. I think like Cross and Devin are fun to watch. Clyde, when he's on Nautilus, is fun to watch. Or when he's not on Nautilus, both of them. Soul Lane's big question marks for me.
Yeah. PCL looked okay, I think, at the game that we got to watch of him. Danny also had a couple of big moments, but Gentle Hearts eventually lost. So shout out to Wang. We'll talk about them a little bit later. But I think this is a pretty fair spot for them.
Yeah. Cool. All right, let's keep it moving. Gravity. This is definitely high entertainment value, Grapes, for sure. Because we've got this Zev Applause bot lane that we have no idea what to expect from them. And Applause, she's particularly not really played much in tier 3 in recent memory. Then you've got this top side of Krakadon that, like, I feel like could really step up, and then Lunacia and Onat, the Return of the Kings. Like, this is a super fun team. I don't know how good they'll be. I think, they might be. Oh, my mic is falling. They might be better than some of the soup here, but not by a lot.
Yeah, I think ahead of the soup, in terms of entertainment value, the gameplay will be fun. In terms of personalities, I don't know if we have too much of them. They obviously have.
They got Onat. They got Onat.
They have Onat, but like the rest of the teams, I have not heard from anyone else really from them. I remember Lunacia specifically is like a very big anti-interviewee, so it might be tough to get some content out of them. So I would maybe want to move them down, because especially considering some of the other teams that we have here. But
they're above BlackRock though. I think they're the second most entertaining team we've had so far.
Yeah. Okay. That's fair. That's fair. Yeah,
Right.
I'm very interested in this team. They could like go and win the whole split. They also could like not miss out on groups. So we'll see.
I'm really intrigued how this roster is going to do, because it was not an inspiring showing against Nightblood. That's for damn sure, Grapes. But next up, we got Lotus. Where do you want to put him?
Okay. Now this team lost to Pulse in that round 4 game. Eventually went 4-1. They have the top side of UST from 2023 with Porsche, Dardock, and Robbie Bob, and then they have Sushi and Mixture. I think overall this will be a very solid team. I think they're very much in that contention for promotion as they were last split. Probably below the Goons a little bit. And then in terms of entertainment value, they're going to be relatively entertaining, but nothing crazy. Robbie Bob's always a vibe.
Yeah.
I am excited to see how this bot lane performs.
Yeah, Robbie's the only real personality on this team, but I do think, like, the roster, similar to Gravity, Grapes, the roster is very fun to watch. Like, I'm very intrigued. I think this bottom lane alone is a huge reason to watch this roster, because this is like a young bot lane that of like NACL hopefuls. Like, I think Mixture and Sushi are both quite good, and I think that is definitely a reason to watch this team. I've got them here. I don't know how you feel. We can move them up, down, left, right.
Maybe a little bit to the left, actually, just because of the fact that they lost to Pulse. That obviously can change as we continue to go through the rest of these teams. I think Pulse probably slots in between them at this point in terms of the promotion points level. But, yeah, I mean, they were seeded second, I think, but like could move around a little bit.
Yeah, I'm good with this, because I feel like we'll probably end up having, I mean, Nightblood, well, we got Nigel's next, but we can skip to Nightblood, because Nightblood probably goes like here.
Ooh,
somewhere.
This is interesting.
Maybe a little bit higher, actually.
The fact that they went 3-2 is like messing with my perception of them a little bit, but they still
should be really good, though. They still should be really good.
And
you know what? I'm willing to move like Castleberry up a little bit if that would make you feel a little bit better, and then like Nightblood
I think
like
so.
here.
Yeah, I think given what we heard from Taki as well after that game, it seemed like they mental boomed a little bit after losing that one game to Dragoons Goons. And so looking at that round 5, we can maybe, look aside it a little bit. I do think that having them placed in that same group as, Pulse Star at the same group as Dragoons Goons now and Gentle Hearts is a little bit worrisome just because of the way
They
the groups
gotta
are set
beat
up.
GHG.
Yeah, but I still think this is a very solid team. They have Fnatic coming back. They have Lunar and Just who continue to impress, and I think Shocky also is primed for a really breakout summer. So, do we move him up just because of the Taki value?
You mean up?
Up in entertainment value? Yeah. Just
I'm gonna be honest, Grapes. I think
cook a
we
little
care about the fact that this is a Taki team more than anybody else.
Okay. No, that's fair.
Like, I'm just gonna keep it a whole buck with you. I feel like we think that a narrative is probably more interesting than anyone else does. Like think about it. The only personality on this team right now is Fan, and I think we have a lot of room to work with Lunar, Just One, and Shocky because these players didn't play for the first split of 24, but Dox has usually been relatively reserved, and I think this will be a fun team to watch. And I am excited, like, oh, it's the Taki All-Star team. But I don't know. Like, I feel like if I'm watching this podcast, I'm not like, oh, Takimon team. You know what I mean? Like, I think we're way more excited about that than most.
I would only push to move him up a little bit because of the fact that Dox and Fan are coming back. But,
all right. I like that. I like that. Return of Doxa to mid lane and Fan to... That's a good point. That's a good point.
Okay. Cool. We have Nigel's next then. Nigel's last tiles. Entertainment is depending on how entertaining you think 46-minute games are. Either very high or very low.
I'm putting them in like AMI tier of entertainment, I think. And they're probably going like here, Grapes.
Okay. I mean, this team made top 12. They have Winking now as well.
They do have Winking.
So that could move them up a little bit.
I'm down
we
to
still
put
have
him,
some of those lower seeded teams that we have to fill in. So we might end up probably shifting some of the teams on the left, maybe a little bit more towards the right, depending on where we think the rest of the teams are going to be. So you're saying entertainment value low. I think I'm inclined to agree with you because sitting there doing nothing for 20 minutes is not always that fun.
Yeah.
So,
honestly, I'm down to move him down even more. I think Nigel's, again, it's just another team of newer players that haven't yet built up their personalities. Which, again, it's just like a newer team, right? And then also, I mean, their games are kind of boring, like, if I'm being honest. More so than maybe like AMI and them.
That's fair. Okay. What's our next squad?
All right, this one can just go here. We got Pulse.
Okay, Pulse Star. I think... Okay, I don't want to spoil what we're gonna do for our power rankings, but I'm inclined to kind of stick him second behind Dragoons Goons for now in terms of points.
I've got him here personally.
They have some personalities on that team for sure. I'm interested to see what Will and Prismal are gonna do in the tier 3 space. I enjoyed listening to Will in those interviews that they did for NACL this last split. So hopefully he comes and does some content for us as well. And I'm very excited to watch Hoarder on this team as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think personality-wise, I think this team honestly a little bit lacking. So maybe we move him down a little bit. But I do think Will's a really exciting player. For the tier 3 space, we've never seen Will in tier 3 as far as I know. We had a conversation about that.
Yeah.
In general, falls into the bucket of roster I'm excited to watch. Also, I do think Pulse gets an entertainment value buff just because the organization of Pulse probably does more for content than literally any of these other teams do. I do think they'll be second as far as promotion points for right now. I'm down to kind of stare away this with Dragoons, Pulse, Lotus, Nightblood.
Yeah, sounds good to me. Excited to watch this team play. Yeah. Who is next?
So I forgot that this team made groups. So sorry, next level. We're going to go back to you guys. I do think Grapes, they'll be towards the left, though.
Yes. I mean, this is a team of players that I really have not seen a ton of at all coming into the split. They were seeded, I think, 27th or 28th. I was pretty surprised to see them qualify all the way through. Shout out to them. The only player I recognized, I think, was Idol, who is serving as a sub, but I think played in a couple of their games. And yeah, for now, I don't really know much about them at all. So
Yeah,
might be a good
neither
place.
do I. I feel like that gives them very slightly above average entertainment value. It's like we know nothing about this team. Not nothing, but we know very little about this team, right? So like that's a reason to watch in and of itself, you know? It's already, I think what Next Level is doing is a cool story. But yeah, we just don't know a lot. I don't think they'll be very good. But
If you're a
I
part of
mean,
Next Level, please reach
congratulations
out.
to them. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
we'd love to talk, love to make some content. I think we have 2 teams
Absolutely.
left. The next one is Wang. Um, oh, that team
Euphoria
missed
first.
groups.
Yeah.
That team missed groups.
They did?
Yep, they
Wait,
went 2
really?
and 3. We have
Oh my
Gropcord,
God.
and then we have
Okay, guys. Well, I can't take them off the tier list, so they're gonna go on the bottom one too.
yeah, lower
Wait,
entertainment
they
value
went to
for
it. You're right.
how
Oh my
they just
God.
went 2-3. We have
Dude, I had
Gropcord
them
and Wang
6 on my
left.
ballot. I'm still coping. That's so funny. Oh, Gromcord. Dude, I forgot about this team too. Oh my God. I'm so cooked. Okay.
This
Yeah,
is
Gromcord. I mean, they're going to the left, but
Yeah, I feel like this is one of those teams that like is full of like solo queue players that like could randomly like get top 8 if like a bunch of like random shit happens. They're also in like a bit of a group of life. And I think that Went Rumble is an interesting player to watch in terms of champion pool and things like that. I got to watch him on San Jose State a little bit. It was fun. Walnut as well was on, I think, Team Turner for at least one tournament. So yeah, I think that their entertainment value might be pretty high. I do think that they're towards the left though.
how do you feel about that? Or higher? Oop, whoops.
No, I think that's good. Maybe
Cool.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think a little lower than Duckies. It makes sense for me.
Cool. Shout out Gromcord. And all these teams, by the way, like that we're kind of putting towards like the left and towards the bottom here as well. Like, hey, if you're on those teams, we want to get to know you. So reach out, you know? And we want to continue to build that narrative. But all right, we got Wang last, Grapes. I do unfortunately think of all the teams that are going to be towards this side of the graph, they go low.
In terms of entertainment value?
Like here.
Dang.
Yeah.
They're
kind
super
of
fun. They're fun to watch because of like the fact that they have a funny name and a funny logo. I think their play style
Yeah.
is interesting. They're pretty active in the early game and things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but other like personalities, not a ton. That I think Debonair's a really fun person to talk to. We got to do an interview with him. I haven't gotten the chance to talk to many of the other players on this team. So maybe that can go up in the future. But I think that's a fair assessment for now to round us out.
Yeah, this team is also, I mean, Grapes, they also have declined interviews and stuff in the past, which, hey, totally fine. Not every player is looking to, like, be a public figure, and that is okay. But I do think, unfortunately, like, I think Wang, they're a fun team to watch, but I think other than that, their personality entertainment value definitely takes a hit. I do think they'll be pretty good this split, though. How do we feel about this alignment?
Feels pretty good. I like this that we have another like middle of the pack here towards like that from Apex up to Gravity as like this like kind of soup in the middle, kind of like we did for NACL.
Yeah.
And then we have our top 4 kind of separated a little bit. It does mean that we do think this battle for top 8 is going to be pretty intense. I do think that teams like Nigel's contingent, Ducky Getters even, could sneak into the quarterfinals if things work their way. So make sure to stay tuned to all the qualifier games. There's going to be some other community streams that are happening as well. There'll be a full announcement on the Rally Cry Twitter at some point to fully disclose where all those games are going to be taking place. But we hope that as many of the qualifier matchups as possible are going to be able to be covered live and at least one a day in an official capacity. So make sure you stay tuned to our social media, stay tuned to the Rally Cry social media, and of course tune in every Saturday and Sunday at twitch.tv/NACL2 and NACL because the NACL will be starting at that same time as well.
Yeah, probably tomorrow from when this episode comes out at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern on NACL2. You can watch Black Rock Esports take on Gravity towards the top right of the alignment chart that we just put down. Grapes, it is good to be back for the qualifiers for Tier 3, streaming live. I feel like we probably want to wrap this up pretty quick. It's been a long episode. Thanks to everyone that has stuck around with us. We're finally getting back into the swing of the season. Weekly releases of episodes will be returning. We appreciate you all for sticking with us. I feel like, you know, this one, Grapes, maybe a little bit more of a chill episode, but we're kind of getting back into the swing of things here. Still a lot of good things being said. If you don't think, well, first, before I close this out, anything else to say to the people out there?
No, excited to get back into summer. Let us know if you have any ideas for episodes or people you want us to talk to, because we'd be more than happy to kick off yet another split of Salty Runback.
Yeah, absolutely. We're excited to kick off another split of Salty Runback Grapes, episode 53. We have come such a long way. We might have, we'll probably have over 60 by the time the season is concluded. We'll definitely have over 60, which is definitely crazy. But thanks to everyone for tuning in. We will be back next week for sure with another episode of Salty Runback. If you don't think that Dragoons Goons will be the most fun team to watch, or here's a better one. If you don't think that Blue Otter will be last place in the NACL, you can take what we said with a grain of salt. I've been Hawk. That's been Grapes. We'll see you all.